the past, I've been very critical of a lot of classic books because I feel like a lot of books that are kind of shoved on us, books like To Kill a Mockingbird, books like Lord of the Flies, books like, I don't know, The Book Thief, or, several other ones that I've read over the years. They all kind of come off as contrived, like they're trying to force a narrative. They're trying to be this weird, woke, kind of subversive, like 60s style propaganda. Okay, like racism bad, Holocaust was bad. Like they always do like the same things. They've been indoctrinated by the same people, and so they force the same kind of like weird narrative. Okay, it's very transparent if you read a lot and you start like noticing these things about how everyone seems to be moving in lockstep like a cult to push this kind of messaging onto people. But it's very, very interesting when you read a classic novel and you kind of realize not only is it as good as people say it is honestly quite a bit better. And that's kind of my problem with Fahrenheit 451, honestly, is that like it is a great book. I loved it. I got through it in I think about a day, maybe two. I was kind of busy, but like I was just thinking about this novel constantly while I was reading it and came away like still thinking about it. And honestly, at this stage, one of the reasons I wasn't like gushing about it and making videos about it, like wasn't exactly sure what I thought of this novel, because initially I was kind of taken aback by like the tone, the setting, the setup, the characters. I felt almost as if like it was kind of a forced situation, right? Like, oh man, it's a dystopian society where they burn books because they're so evil. Like, to me, and I think a lot of people, like, Fahrenheit 451 on the surface seems like it has a very ham-fisted message. Everyone says this, like, oh, it's about censorship. Oh, it's about a government not allowing you to read. And reading it, I was very, very surprised when I realized that is not actually the case. That this isn't about censorship at all. And that's a very interesting thing to me, because I've heard like other people say the same thing, over the years. I've heard like discourse about this. Like, to me, the censorship versus the true meaning of the book debate basically amounts to people who have read the book versus people who have like read Spark Notes or like know it by reputation. Because everyone will tell you that like Fahrenheit 451 is about censorship when in actuality it isn't. It's about like the apathy of society. Okay, it's about how people have chosen this lifestyle. And it's very interesting to me because like this is the kind of thing you hear people say about like Brave New World or something, because the way that other most dystopian novels try and portray these kind of societies is this idea that like, oh yeah, the government's all powerful and they're watching you all the time and they'll arrest you for minor infractions and people are scared to speak out. Like Fahrenheit 451 is a better dystopian novel because it better represents what like a truly dystopian society would look like, in which people are apathetic to what's happening around them. They don't care. They don't care about the book burnings. They don't care about the war. They don't care about society, other people, their own families, people they've known all their lives. Like, all they care about is going home and watching TV, and that is kind of like, it is kind of a, like, I felt like I said, it felt kind of ham-fisted, like you can't really take it seriously. You have like Clarice McGlellan, I think her name is, like she comes out and she says, oh man, they had to make the billboards 200 feet long because the cars were just driving so fast now. Like, it's such a silly thing. You can't help but laugh about it. But like at the same time, this was made in the 50s, and like these kind of like weird exaggerations probably seemed plausible at the time. You have like robot dogs that hunt people down, like it's like, this is the 50s, they didn't know how this stuff was going to work, and that's like the weird thing about this is that like this book is simultaneously really, really dated and yet really, really prescient, because it doesn't predict the technology and like the actual vibe of like the culture at all, right? But it gets the soul of it right. And that's the thing that really like bothers me about this book in a good way, is that like he 100% nailed like the general problem we have with society today. Is that like it's not the government, it's not the people in control, it's not the jobs, it's not the schools, it's genuinely an issue with the general population. You know, anybody who's like, the general population are just sitting around all the time doing drugs and accomplishing nothing with their lives. Okay, they don't care about other people, they don't think about things, they don't learn, they don't try to improve their situations. This has been something I've noticed like ever since I was a kid. You know, how I was putting all this effort into like learning things and like putting myself out there and like trying to develop my new skill sets and like, you know, becoming successful. And then like I would see what everyone else was doing. And essentially, like, everyone else was partying, having fun, doing drugs, screwing around. A lot of them are still doing that, you know? Like, you know, it's like the Rekieta lifestyle is not that unusual for people with the means to do so, right? So, like, for me, it was this very prescient thing, right? Like, looking at this, like, seeing a depiction of, like, this completely apathetic society. A society that doesn't need books to be burned because they simply don't want to read. They don't want to improve. They don't want to learn anything. They don't want to care because it's easier this way, right? And something like this, you know, this book really depicts how pathetic that mindset actually is. You know, you have this guy named Guy going on this like, you know, personal realization that like he is absolutely living a miserable life, you know, in spite of like, you know, having a wife, having a home, having everything he could possibly want. Like, the reality is his soul thirsts for more. And throughout the novel, he, on the surface, loses everything. You know, his wife turns him over. He has to leave his city. He has to, like, join a band of hobos, right? You know, you get this ending that should be relatively bleak. But actually, the way I read it is that, like, this is realistically how people are going to deal with a dystopian society. Is that there will always be people that are perfectly willing to stand up to the system and do whatever they can to oppose it. And eventually, it will collapse. The simple fact of the matter is that even with all the extreme takes that the government has taken to like kind of brainwash the population, to make them apathetic, to make them not care about things, to try and prevent them even having like ready access, easy access to books, like in the end, like plenty of people still care about them and they understand like why this system is doomed to failure, you know, and that's kind of what I think makes this so special, is that this is not something that like ends on a good note, like on the surface, and yet you have this sense of just like the true nature of humanity in this sense is that we will always be moving forward. We will adjust to our changing circumstances. We will grow. We will evolve. Even if society does everything in its power to suppress that evolution and growth. And that's what we're seeing today. You know, that's what we're seeing now with like the public education system, with the college indoctrination, with like the job market. Like what we're seeing is society actively trying to suppress growth. You know, it is the same kind of thing. It is society is trying to make things prohibitively expensive to kind of force people into poor positions and force them into like, you know, becoming ignorant, apathetic people. And the simple fact of the matter is, the simple reality of the matter, this is not going to work. And we've already begun to see this, you know, worldwide. We're beginning to see people like kind of rise up against the system. Like the reality is, Ray Bradbury was absolutely right, you know, in depicting how people like that behave. But it will never ever happen on a mass scale, like as he depicted in his novel. Like, the simple fact of the matter is, people who are willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to challenge authority, like, we will always exist. And it is very, very interesting, like, just seeing it happen in real time. People need to stop, like, expecting an easy way out. They need to stop, like, doing those dumb, like, oh, I wish I wasn't living in interesting times. Like, do you think everybody in history has never had to struggle? Like, do you really think that? Do you really believe that? Like, it simply isn't true. Like, you really do have to buckle down and really pursue what you truly want, right? Like, and again, not just making things better for yourself, but for other people. You have to care about history, about culture, about literature, about books, like, and then you have a cultural framework in which you can care about society, like, it's how we bond, it's how we put ourselves out there, it's how we put ideas forward. It's fascinating in that sense. So, like, Fahrenheit 451 isn't really, like, about censorship. Like, it's something about, like, it's about people, it's about society, it's about their how they cope with their own miserable lives. That is something that does need to be said, is that, like, everybody in the novel is miserable with the current state of things, whether they admit it or not. It is that's the reality of it, and we have to face these things, address them, and challenge them. Like, apathy is no solution to misery, and that is something that we all should take away from this book.